The movie starts with a young man searching on his smartphone web browser in the comfort of his home. Suddenly, he lost connection to the Wi-Fi. Complaining to his family, he stretches his hand towards the ceiling of their house to try and reconnect. It was then revealed that they were stealing Wi-Fi from their upstairs neighbor as they were simply too poor to afford for themselves. After scouting for a bit, Kai-Woo managed to find a spot in a toilet where they were able to connect to one of the nearby Wi-Fi that doesn't have any password. Life is rough for the Kim family. They lack many basic necessities of the present day and are barely scraping by from folding pizza boxes. They even purposely let the insecticides from their street enter their house as it them helps kills the bug in their house. Society standing is straightforward with the wealthy or the upper class residing mostly at the top of the city while those that are lower in standing are located much below the city and can even live below the ground, making them vulnerable and more impacted by inconvenience such as natural disaster. Their family had an unexpected visit from Kai-Woo's friends, Min Hyuk, university student. Min Hyuk gift a scholar rock to the Kim family as insisted by his grandfather. As Kai-Woo and Min Hyuk chat over cheap beer, he was introduced to a tutoring gig. Leaving to study abroad, he suggests that Kai-Woo pose as a university student to take over his job as an English language tutor for Da-Hai, the daughter of the rich Park family. After his sister, Kai-Young helps create a false certificate for him in Photoshop. Kai-Woo, posing as a Yonsei University student, sets off for an interview at the Park's residence high up on the hill. Mrs. Park, the mother of Da-Hai, wanting to know if Kai-Woo was up to her standards, requests for a sit-in for their first lesson and is subsequently hired by the Park family. The wealthy Park family consists of 4 members and a housekeeper. Mr. Park. He is the patriarch of the Park family, a wealthy and successful businessman. Mr. Park is portrayed as calm, reserved, and somewhat aloof. He is often seen as a symbol of the upper class and is somewhat disconnected from the harsh realities of the world outside his affluent bubble. Mrs. Park. Mrs. Park is the wife of Mr. Park. She is elegant, graceful, and somewhat naive. She takes a more hands-on role in the household, particularly with their children. Her character is also emblematic of the upper-class lifestyle, emphasizing appearances and comfort. Da-Song. Da-Song is the young son of the Park family. He is a bright but eccentric child who is fascinated by Native American culture. Da-Hai. Da-Hai is the teenage daughter of the Park family. She is portrayed as somewhat aloof and preoccupied with her own life, particularly her relationships and social life. Her character represents the typical affluent teenager. Moon Gwang. Moon Gwang is the Park family's housekeeper and the maid. She has been with the family for years and has a close relationship with them. After being paid a wealthy amount after his first tutoring class and being introduced to Da-Song, Kai-Woo taking advantage of Mrs. Park's plight of trying to find an art teacher that can last as Da-Song's long-term teacher. He schemes to get each member of the Kim family a job within the Park family. Kai-Woo recommends Jessica, which is actually his sister Kai-Young, as an art therapist for Da-Song. After Kai-Young had her class with Da-Song, Mr. Park returned home and requested Yoon, his chauffeur, to send Kai-Young home. During the car ride, Kai-Young frames Yoon by making it appear he had a sexual encounter in the car, which disappointed Mr. Park greatly after he found a pair of women's underwear in his car. After Da-Song's next lesson with Kai-Young, Mrs. Park was sharing to Jessica about her plight regarding their chauffeur. Jessica makes use of the opportunity and recommends her relative's chauffeur, in actuality her father, Kai-Teek, to take Yoon's place. The Kim siblings successfully manipulate the Parks into believing that they are unrelated, but they are all part of the same family working under different aliases. Before Kai-Teek could start his job as a chauffeur, he and Kai-Woo visited the car rental so they could rent and understand how to use the car in a professional setting. Kai-Teek makes his way to Mr. Kim's office and was greeted by a very busy and occupied Mr. Kim, currently in a meeting, which kindly told him to take a sit and wait. During the test drive, with Kai-Teek's humble and calm demeanor, he was able to quickly impress Mr. Kim and gained his trust, resulting in him being hired. As the Kims settle into their roles as they gradually takes advantage of the Park's obliviousness. Mr. Park is portrayed as naive and gullible, while Mrs. Park is naive yet well-intentioned. The Kims subtly manipulate their employers, trying to increase their control over the household without the Parks noticing. The Kims plans to remove Moon Gwang from her position as the housekeeper and had her replaced with Chung Suk, their mother. After hearing from Da Hai about the peach allergy which Moon Guang has, Kai Wu and Kai Yung, taking advantage of that fact, decide to conduct a plan to convince Mrs. Park that she has tuberculosis. Kai Wu scrapes off peach skin and kept them in a small bottle, which he then scatters a bit on Moon Guang as he walked past her. This causes her to have severe allergic reaction, which she promptly visits the hospital for. At the hospital, Kai Teek secretly took a photo of her and used the photo to start a conversation with Mrs. Park on their shopping trip about how he overheard that she might have tuberculosis. This slowly grows the seed of doubt she has in her. As Mrs. Park and Kai Teek is about to return from their shopping trip, Jessica, who was with Da Song at that time, was informed beforehand and execute her plan 3 minutes before their return. Heading down to the living room where Moon Guang was, she scattered some peach skin on her neck unbeknownst to her while pretending to head for the fridge. Mrs. Park came back to find Moon Guang with the allergy symptoms in full swing, coughing furiously into a tissue. As she throws the tissue away into dustbin, Kai Teek walked ahead and squirted some ketchup sauce onto the tissue, which he then held it up and showed Mrs. Park the blood stain on it. At this point, the decision to replace Moon Guang has been made. Mrs. Park and Moon Guang had a solemn talk before she had to leave the estate. Kai Teek is sending Mr. Kim back home when he talks about his craving for good ribs ever since Moon Guang had left them. With the given opportunity, Kai Teek gave a business card to a company named The Care and introduced Mr. Kim to it as a member-only company which provides veteran-grade service to VIP only and recommends him to hire a new housekeeper from them by contacting their helpline. In actuality, the business card was photoshopped by Kai Yung and the helpline is linked to the Kim's family house phone. Upon being contacted by Mrs. Park, Kai Yung professionally plays the role of a contact which is supposed to find the best housekeeper for the Parks. Chung Suk was promptly assigned and eventually hired by the gullible Park family. Da Song make a sneak remark on how Kai Teek, Chung Suk and Kai Yung all smell the same. Smell being beyond simply a mere symbol of social status. The smell threatens to expose one's identity and the dark secrets lurking beneath, foreshadowing future events in the film. The Kim family have a celebratory meal of their newfound success, bragging about the money that is coming from the Parks to them. On the fateful day when the Parks leave on a camping trip in prelude to Da Song's birthday, the Kims revel in the luxuries of the house. As the family celebrates and get drunk in the living room, Kai Wu revealed that she is dating Da Hai and has serious intentions on asking her out when she entered university. Kai Wu also mentioned that how Kai Yung fits naturally into the world of the rich, unlike them, which she abruptly dismissed. They are interrupted when Moon Guang abruptly appears at the door, telling Chung Suk she had left something in the basement and requires her permission to enter the house. As the family hides, she goes through a hidden entrance to an underground bunker created by the architect and previous homeowner, who was too embarrassed to inform the Park family of its existence. There, Moon Guang's husband Junasei is revealed to be living in the bunker while hiding from loan sharks. He is also revealed to be the ghost, whom Da Song saw when he attempts to come out of the bunker to steal groceries from the Park's refrigerator. Chung Suk refuses Moon Guang's pleas to allow Junasei to remain in the bunker in exchange for regular payments, but the three others eavesdropping Kims accidentally reveal themselves in hiding. Putting 2 and 2 together, she realized the fishiness of the situation and understood the intention of the Kims. As the Kim family are being held hostage in the living room, Moon Guang videotapes them on her phone, inadvertently revealing their deception, and threatens to expose them to the Park family. In a moment of distraction, the Kim family rushes the sofa, knocking both down, and the power struggle to snatch the phone started. As their brawl climaxed with the Kims coming out on top, they heard the house phone ringing. Turns out, due to the heavy downpour, the Park family must return home earlier than planned. Returning home with their extravagant SUV covered in mud and entire family drenched, the Kim family taken by surprise. Panic starts to set in as they scramble to clean up their mess and hide evidence of their presence, all while trying to avoid detection by the returning Parks that is already making the way up the entrance staircase. The Parks enter their home, oblivious to the fact that the Kims are hiding among them. The Kims are forced to hide under the dining table and in the basement as Kai Teek struggle to drag their hostage into the basement and back into the bunker. Escaping from the grasp of Kai Teek, Moon Guang makes a break for it, rushing up the staircase of the basement, attempting to seek help from the Park family. Noticing the frantic footsteps coming from the basement, Chung Wu, that is in the process of making Ramdon as instructed, kicks Moon Guang back down. The kick causes Moon Guang to topple down back into the basement. This resulted in her hitting her head, concussing and fatally wounding her. Kai-Teek dragged Moon Guang back into the bunker, closing the doors shut and out of sight from the parks. It is then revealed that Junasei was the one responsible for operating the stairs lights whenever Mr. Park returned home due to his utmost respect for him. His bunker had provided him with shelter and food during all this time despite Mr. Park being oblivious to that fact. Junasei was attempts to communicate to Da Song via Morse code signal from the stairs light. Upon realization, he was immediately stopped by Kai-Teek, which managed to tie and gag both. When the Parks are not in the living room, the Kim family try to make a run for it only for them to be halted by the Parks coming down the stairs due to Da Song wanting to go camping in the garden, forcing them all to hide below the dining room table. Their attempts to get Da Song back into the house ultimately failed, resulting in Mr. and Mrs. Park sleeping on the sofa so they could get a clear view of Da Song's well-being. This results in the Kims to be stuck below the dining table. Before falling asleep, the Parks remarks about the smell of Kai-Teek, despite meaning no harm in their words and how those are words that Kai-Teek should have never heard. Kai-Teek had his pride and emotions hurt deeply, once again, foreshadowing the ending of the film regarding the importance of smell. As the Parks fall asleep, the Kims makes a break for it and escape, exposing them to the torrential downfall, which is regarded as a blessing to the Parks while a major inconvenience to the Kims and those of lower rank in the societal hierarchy, serving as a stark contrast to the luxury and comfort they experienced while living in the Park family's home. As they return below, the streets and houses are flooded. Everyone was frantically struggling to save whatever possession they had. Due to the massive flooding, the Kims along with many were forced to spend the night over at a disaster relief center. The next day, with Da Song's birthday party being held, Kai-Teek is contacted by Mrs. Park for a shopping trip to gather last-minute supplies for the birthday party and the promise of overtime pay. Kai-Young, on the other hand, was invited to be a guest for the party, while Kai-Woo was also invited by Da-Hai. The party is an extravagant affair in the lush backyard of the Park family's home with many friends and family of the Parks present. In the car, a very emotionally and physically exhausted Kai-Teek was driving Mrs. Park back after their shopping trip. He overheard Mrs. Park's conversation with her friends or relatives and how she describes the downpour last night as a blessing while being clearly oblivious to the struggle the others had to go through. Adding insult to injury, she started realizing the smell that Kai-Teek is emanating, possibly due to not having a proper shower from being stuck at the disaster relief center. This hurts him further, building on his pent-up frustration and anger. In Da-Hai room, Kai-Woo remarks about how pretty and cool everyone looks and asks Da-Hai if he looked like he fit into their world, which she pondered a bit before nodding her head in agreement. Kai-Woo takes the scholar rock out of his bags and plans to enter the bunker to kill Junasei and Moon Guang. In the kitchen, Kai-Young and Chung-Woo admitted that they are too worked out last night and was planning to head into the bunker to achieve a mutual understanding with them. Knowing that they might be hungry, Chung-Woo requested for Kai-Young to take some food along with her. However, she was interrupted by Mrs. Park that would like Kai-Young to be the one to bring the cake to Da Song. Kai-Woo entered the bunker only to find a Moon Guang that is already dead from a concussion she received during yesterday's brawl before he was suddenly ambushed by a grief-stricken and vengeful Junasei. Kai-Woo tried to make a run for it but was knocked out by Junasei using the scholar rock, leaving him lying in a pool of blood. Junasei then stabs Kai-Young with a kitchen knife in front of the horrified guests as she was holding the birthday cake. Da Song suffers another seizure upon seeing Junasei again. Chung-Suk, seeing her own daughter stab, rushes Junasei, grappling with each other till she fatally impales him with a barbecue skewer. While Kai-Teek tends to Kai-Young's stab wounds, Mr. Park orders Kai-Teek to drive Da Song to the hospital. Amidst the chaos, Kai-Teek, upon seeing Mr. Park's disgusted reaction to Junasei's odor and realizing how no one bothered to even help them, causing him to finally break, he angrily kills Mr. Park with the knife before fleeing. Weeks later, Kai-Woo is recovering from a brain operation. He and Chung-Suk are convicted of fraud and put on probation. Kai-Young has unfortunately died from her injury, while Kai-Teek remains missing. Junasei is assumed to have been an insane homeless man, and neither his nor Kai-Teek's motive for the murders are known. As Kai-Woo recovers from his injury, he found himself to have a habit of spying on the Park's former home, which is now owned by a German family. One day he sees a message in Morse code from a kitchen light, and he understood that his father was hiding in the bunker. Kai-Teek, hiding in the bunker, has buried Moon Guang in the garden and has been sending the message via Morse code every day. hoping that Kai Wu will eventually see it. Kai Teek regretted his actions and still grieves over the loss of Mr. Park, still living in their basement flat with his mother. A motivated Kai Wu writes a letter to Kai Teek, vowing to earn enough money to buy the house and free him as he slowly drifts off into his dream. He dreams of being successful in earning a large sum of money where he was able to afford the house and allowing his father to be able to leave the bunker freely. With the many odds against him, whether if his dreams could come true or not, only time will tell. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more.